The National Coordinator of the National Brands Development and Made in Nigeria Special Project Office, George Nwabueze, has denied allegations that he ran a fake federal agency. Nwabueze says the office is a project unit under the supervision of the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and has existed since 2010. His response follows an announcement by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission that President Bola Tinubu had ordered his arrest over the alleged illegal operation. The ICPC alleged that Nwabueze operated the outfit with the involvement of senior public servants in the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Let's put this into perspective. We are now joined by the National Legal Advisor Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, Henry Ekine, and Public Affairs Analyst, Alesta Wilcox. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on the news. I'm going to start with you. First, Mr. Wilcox. What administrative and legal criteria determines whether an office operating within the federal government qualifies as a legitimate government agency or merely a project unit?
Well, thanks for having me. I think we are seeing interesting times in Nigeria. I think the issue of Adeyemi is now becoming a blessing in disguise for the entire nation, for us to dig out most of the rots that is inherent in our civil service structure. Well, an agency is illegal if it is not being established by a law, if it's not being backed up by any law. Because for an agency to exist, it must come up through the force of law, either through the parliament or through the executive council decisions. But there must be some legal instrument of law that is either from the parliament, if it's a commission that is supposed to carry out certain projects, or either through the executive council decision of the federal government to carry out a specific function. So where none of those exist, or such as existed in the past and is no longer available, and maybe that committee or whatever has satisfied its mandate and has wind down, it becomes illegal. So in these days and time, we're yet to see. I'm not sure we've seen the last of this whole thing. And I said it sometime. I'm showing you a station and another station that there are more and more of this rot that's going to be discovered in Nigeria. And I think this is one of the saving grace that the country is going to have, because the amount of resources that is being wasted through fraud, through all these quasi agencies that do not have any resemblance to our governance architecture. I think we've not seen the last of it, and more is yet to come. But any agency that do not have the full force of law, either from the parliament or an executive council decision to create such a unit or an agency, is time to be illegal.
Let me ask you, Henry, being that, of course, from a legal perspective, I'd like to hear from you. What administrative and, should I say, legal criteria determines whether an office operating within the federal government qualifies as a legitimate government agency or merely a project unit?
Thank you for having me, and good evening. The legality or otherwise of any institution or agency or parastatal of government will depend on the formation or the foundation of that agency and the recognition beyond the foundation or formation, including the recognition and, of course, the authority that vests power in it. Because as clearly as you could have the parliament enact laws that could establish institutions or agencies of government for the purpose of enforcing the provisions of those laws, you also could have some delegated powers to some authorities or even offices to create certain agencies or administrative instruments or institutions for carrying out some recognized functions or mandate of that office. And that's why for us, even when Adeyemi's matter arose, it became imperative that certain authorities and recognized governments, offices of government, be interrogated. Again, we have got this. Apparently, this is not an agency or institution that was established by law, apparently, expressly, by an act of the National Assembly. So it moves to the realm of an executive institution or some institution established by way of delegated legislation. If the office of the Secretary of the Government of the Federation has the mandate, either constitutionally or by an executive order, to carry out a particular function, and then it constitutes a committee or say a body to perform that function, arguably that body will draw its legitimacy from the same legitimacy that the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation would have gotten, either by law or by executive instrument, as the case may be. So a lot of parastatals and agencies or similar offices are domiciled in the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, as well as the office of the Secretary to the Government of the state. And it is in this regard that certain specific time-bound functions are performed through special bodies, if you like, special purpose vehicle for carrying out those functions of government through those legitimate institutions or organs of government as well. But in most cases, they will have time to carry out those functions and even specific mandate. And upon execution of that mandate, or upon expiration of that time.
All right, Henry. Permit me to butt in here. But my next question is to you, Alesta. Now, how significant is Nwabueze's claim that the office has existed since 2010 under the supervision of the SGF's office?
Arguably, that gives.
My question is to you, Alesta. My question is to Alesta, actually.
Okay, so sorry.
Oh. Okay. If an agency existed since 2010 and it doesn't have any legislative backing, just like Mr. Ekine just said, if there is a project, a special purpose vehicle project, agency to carry out a specific project, it will not have a legitimacy of impact of perpetuity. And so if an agency that existed since 2010 do not have any legislative legality, then that agency does not have, it must be fake. Because for an agency to have existed since 2010, it should have, you are calling it an agency, not a committee, not a special purpose committee, an agency. And any agency of government must have a legal backing, either from National Assembly or from a well-defined structure. Either the president decides to set up a body for a certain purpose, and such bodies do not really have a perpetuity in existence. It's only agencies that have perpetuities, agencies created by law. So Nwabueze's claim that it has been existing since 2010 is neither here nor there, because for me, when you call it an agency, then it must have a legal backing. It must have been legally structured through the National Assembly with the proper legal status. That is the only way an agency could have existed from 2010 and keep existing. But if it is a mere committee that the office of the SGF formed in 2010, and maybe they keep keeping it, I don't know what it will be doing. That is where some of this criminality comes into being. Because if the office of the SGF doesn't have the power to create agency, that's again, and that's what we should ask. So the office of the SGF has power to create agency. The first one heard about Mr. Adeyemi was the fact that it was in the office of the chief of staff. Now this one in the office of the SGF. So the SGF office have power to create agency that will exist from 2010. 2010 till now is about 16 years. That will exist for 16 years without legislative backing that will give it real life. So you see, there's a wider problem in the country. And because there are loopholes in the governance architecture, everybody takes advantage. Yes, there could have been a special purpose vehicle in 2010 that created just a committee of this nature and then had it for a particular purpose. But it should have been legalized if you want it to be an agency. And such an agency could not have existed under the office, under an office. It should have had its own life, its own status, and everything. So we need to. So his claim, as far as I'm concerned, is neither here nor there.
Let me come to you now, Henry. What documentation should establish whether the National Brands Development and Made in Nigeria Special Project Office, what documents backs it that it was lawfully created and funded?
I imagine that that's for me, but I think I would say that even the reference to the name, as you just read out, it does not fall within the purview of an agency or parastatal of government created by law. It clearly would have been a coordinating platform for a specific project. The project could have a definite lifespan or could have a definite mandate to accomplish. So it's either a lifespan or to accomplish a mandate. And unfortunately, if there was no lifespan, and that could only happen where there is this inordinate, if you like, motive to probably misappropriate funds. Otherwise, even if it was a deliberate policy of government to promote made in Nigeria goods and services, it should have some lifespan. Even if it is 10 years, 20 years, but would have had a situation where, yes, there was a deliberate executive decision. And that's the argument we're making. It is either a legislative creation or an executive decision that there is going to be the implementation of an objective and then creating policies for that objective to promote made in Nigeria goods and services, and domicile that in the office of the Honorable Secretary to the Government of the Federation. And let me say, the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation can actually be given some mandate to carry out certain specific objectives of government. And then in carrying out those objectives, that office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation can create a coordinating office or a coordinating team. It could be external of the primary officials of that office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. It could be a part of that, of some staff of that office, and probably some experts probably deployed from outside of that office. But if that is the case, especially as Nwabueze has come up to say that he was, it didn't seem to be even the first coordinator of that office, that this is an office that existed for 16 years, but that he was given a letter of appointment from the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. That, for me, should be the beginning point for this inquiry, especially even the ICPC. The ICPC didn't come out to say they confirmed or didn't confirm from the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation before they concluded that it was an illegal office. Illegal here could mean that it is not recognized by law or created by law. But does it exist? Was it created by the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation? Then it becomes some legitimate office, apparently. But here I'm not concluding whether it is legitimate or legal or otherwise until the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation.
All right, Henry, permit me to butt in just yet again. But let me move my next question to Alesta. Now, if the office is genuinely a project unit, what level of approval, should I say, oversight should it ordinarily have within the office of the SGF?
First and foremost, let me also even be a bit skeptical here. We are talking about promotion of made in Nigerian products. How does that correlate into the office of the SGF? So is that part of the function of the SGF to promote made in Nigeria? We have the Ministry of Trade and Ministry of Trade. We have other bodies within the within the industry and the trade sector, Export Promotion Council, Nigerian Promotion Council, Raw Materials Council. There are so many of those bodies for which such an agency could properly fit in. Does it fit into the office of the Secretary to the Federal Government? The office of the Federal Government is an administrative office that is looking after government implementation and the coordination of government activities among ministers within the presidency and all that. So how does such a body fit into the mandate of the office of the SGF? Maybe sometimes we're getting too much part to some of these offices, you know. So if you understand what that office stands for and the kind of assignment it is meant, does this kind of assignment fall within the purview of the mandates of that office. That is also what should be considered taken seriously. So for me, really, I think there is a lot of rots in our governance architecture, and everybody just creates something in order to siphon money. This is all it's about. You know, appointing directors, if it's a special purpose vehicle within the office, maybe you assign civil servants that will manage such projects. But when you start giving external appointment, and of course, appointments in Nigeria to any agency must be approved by the president. The SGF doesn't make appointments, especially when it has to be an external appointment into the governance architecture of the country. It is the president that gives authority appointment that approves appointment. You know, not the SGF. The SGF will only implement when the president has approved. So how did this appointment come about? Does it have the input of the president? Because it's an external appointment. It's not within the civil service structure. It's not within the bureaucratic system. It's an external appointment. Did the president approve such appointment? Even if it is for the office of the SGF, the president still approves every appointment. So there are deeper roads that people are just manipulating and fleecing the system in order to keep perpetrating themselves into offices and to steal our common patrimony. This is just what's happening in the country. And I think there should be more in-depth analysis, in-depth investigation, and I'm telling you for free, more will be uncovered in the days and time to come.
All right, I'm having a conversation with Henry Ekine and Alesta Wilcox. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time on the news.